Welcome back to Tort Talk. It's been a few weeks since I've been able to join Joe Fantini and Mark on Tort Talk. Today, Mark is off, but I am back from paternity leave, and I can't wait to get into all of the things that are going on in the world of mass torts in under 10 minutes with our friend, the Oracle, Joe Fantini. Thanks, Joe, for joining us on Tort Talk.
Good to see you, John. Congratulations again. Mark kept everything moving along, so don't worry about that, but excited to connect with you here today to talk about the latest developments in the world of mass torts.
Here's probably the most important question you can ask your marketing agency. Who are they really optimizing for?
Most agencies sell individual tactics, SEO here, ads there, maybe a video if you're lucky. That's not us.
We build acquisition systems while staying tactic agnostic about how they get there.
At RR Digital, we build systems where strategy, channels, and intake actually work together to drive signed cases for your personal injury firm.
And we're founder owned. It's Mark and I, so we're not going to force your law firm into whatever the agency happens to sell.
If you're sick of your agency delivering on big talk but small results,
visit rrdigitalmedia.com and let's start the conversation. Yeah, no, thank you for covering me while I have been out, but it's definitely good to be back. A little bit grayer. I am a little bit more sleep deprived, but I am here and ready to go. And the first thing we're going to talk about today is NEC. So we have another NEC trial that had another defense verdict. This time it was in St. Louis, Missouri. What can you tell us about what is going on with NEC and where does this case go from here?
Yeah, like you mentioned, a disappointing defense verdict came down in the NEC trial. This litigation has certainly presented a lot of challenges for the plaintiffs. We had issues in the MDL getting past summary judgment. We had a huge verdict that was recently overturned on appeal, and then most recently this defense verdict. So this one came out of Missouri, like you mentioned, a very deserving plaintiff, very deserving family ended up walking away, unfortunately, with the defense verdict. But on the horizon here, we have the first MDL Bellwether trial, which is scheduled to kick off later this year. This is the first one that we've been able to actually get to a jury, hopefully. So we'll see how this goes, but a challenging litigation. It's going to continue to be a fight here, but very deserving clients, and we're going to keep pushing forward. Hopefully we get some momentum going with a plaintiff verdict before the end of the summer.
Yeah, it's a disappointing result. NEC it's an interesting litigation, kind of teeters on the product liability, the medical malpractice, both pointing the finger at each other. We'll see what happens in the next trial, but we also had another trial in Bard PowerPort. So we are gearing up for the second Bellwether trial in the Bard PowerPort MDL. What specifically is this case focused on? And is this a defense pick, a plaintiff pick, or a judge's pick?
Yeah, so this case is a little bit different than the first one. We kind of have two lines of cases in this litigation. We have the fracture or the migration type cases, or what this second Bellwether case is, an infection case. So this is kind of a little bit of a different theory. I believe this is a plaintiff's pick as well, but we're going to now see if the jury is going to side with us, the plaintiffs, and say that these devices can cause infection. As you know, we lost that initial Bellwether trial, but a little bit of a different injury here. We have about 3,500 cases pending in the MDL. We have a pretty aggressive docket for Bellwether trials later this year. So we're looking at about under a month for this trial. We'll get a verdict sometime in September, and hopefully we can get another one, maybe two other trials in the MDL. We're certainly going to have to retry one of those fracture migration cases regardless of what happens here, but really important because hundreds of cases in the MDL involve infection only. So we'll see how the jury decides this one.
Yeah, this one has been moving relatively quickly, hasn't it?
Yeah, this is a pretty quick MDL, right? Two cases to jury very quickly. The second case even was supposed to go a little bit earlier this year in 2026. A case was dismissed. It got moved back a little bit. So if you think about it, you have three trials in any mass tort in a year. That's pretty quick. So the pace of this is good. People are certainly happy with that, but really important that we can get a win on these infection cases, which some consider to be the lower tier injuries.
Moving on to social media addiction. This was a hot topic earlier in the year. We are gearing up for, I believe it's the second trial. This is the second trial in the MDL. Or is it the California?
Yeah, this is the second California Bellwether State Court individual personal injury trial.
So we've already seen in this trial, Google and TikTok settle. If we go back to the first trial, we had TikTok and Snapchat settle. So Google bowed out of this one. We still have Snapchat in, we still have Meta in. It's coming up pretty soon, right? But before the end of the month, that one will kick off. What can you tell us about what you think will happen there with Snapchat and Meta remaining and not settling out yet?
Yeah, what I think is they're both going to settle out. Just the way this litigation's been going overall. We had the big verdict in the personal injury case. We had the first school district MDL case settlement. The rulings are really coming down in our favor. So what I'm anticipating is we're going to hear about Snap settling probably in the next week or so, and then it's only going to be Meta standing. So do they want to go and try a next case, have Zuckerberg come in and testify as well, when the jury really wasn't super sympathetic and receptive to him? Or do they just end up settling out? I'm anticipating that this case doesn't go to jury and we hear about a settlement before the end of the month, actually.
I I agree with you on Snapchat. I think they probably will settle. Meta's been pretty staunch and pushed back a lot on these cases. I think it'll be interesting to see if Meta bends. And if they do, how does that set the table for the next trial and for both the California litigation and the MDL? These cases are getting national attention now. Meta is definitely under the gun to make changes. We're seeing the states themselves make changes. Very interesting to see how this one is going to progress, because I think it will set the table for the future of the litigation.
Yeah, no, that's totally correct. I agree with you 100%. I'm just thinking if Meta can settle this one out, that probably buys them another 3 months or so until the next trial's up. I think we just recently saw the Supreme Court came down, like you mentioned, saying that Texas can move forward with that age verification. So we're seeing all types of pressure coming from all of these angles on these, social media giants. So from Meta's perspective, I could see a settlement being advantageous to them, allowing them to clear the deck a little bit, maybe work to some sort of broader settlement, because they certainly have a lot of issues on their hands.
Yeah. I went and saw Toy Story 5 with my kids this weekend. Have you seen that yet, Joe?
I haven't seen that one yet.
It is even more so bringing awareness to the impact of not only technology, but social media on children. And it enabled me to have a dialogue with my kids about it. It is so much in the public sphere, and people are so aware of the impact of technology, but yet everyone still uses it. So very, very interesting litigation in the time that we're going through from a technology perspective. You've got OpenAI that is going to go public later this year. You had SpaceX that just went public. Technology is just becoming pervasive at this point. So Meta and their involvement in this case, and how they plan on continuing to roll out AI usage and social media integrated into the physical world with their new Ray-Ban glasses that just came out. There's just a lot that is, I think, going to be impacted by this trial and the litigation as a whole. So that's why I think Meta is going to push back a little bit, because there's just so much going on right now that if they wind up, sort of admitting a little bit of defeat, that could have big impact and shock waves through the future of the litigation and their products themselves. We're going to move on to a topic that we cannot have a tort talk without, which is Roundup. The class action final approval hearing was pushed back. What happened? Why did this happen? And what happens next?
Yeah, so if you remember, we had in Missouri State Court, the class action was filed there. It ended up getting remanded by the plaintiff to federal court. Very unique, odd situation, rarely ever happens. The federal court decided that they didn't have jurisdiction over the case, remanded it back to the Missouri State Court, and basically the Missouri State Court was supposed to have the final approval hearing on July 9th. They decided to allow additional times for the objectors to come in and brief the reasons why they are against the settlement and objecting to it, and also to address the interplay between the federal level and the state court. So with what happened at the Supreme Court, I feel like a lot of plaintiffs and plaintiffs' law firms were maybe a little bit more excited about this settlement now. So having it pushed back wasn't the best development. It looks like the settlement's still going to go forward, but any delay, any more time it does raise a little bit concern.
So really, this is probably just a little bit of a time delay as opposed to potentially putting more risk ahead for the plaintiffs. Is that your assessment?
Yeah, right now there's no indication the settlement's going to blow up, right? We had the initial approval that went through, this final approval, just really a procedural hurdle, I'll call it. The hearing's going to be delayed a little bit. We knew exactly when the Supreme Court ruling was going to come down, so both parties took that into consideration when negotiating this settlement. It came down in Monsanto's favor, just like we anticipated. So there's still exposure there on their end for these other claims, the negligence, the design defect, etc. So hopefully we'll have the hearing in August and we get a decision sometime in the fall granting the final approval and we can move forward with the settlement.
And there you have it. This week's Tort Talk, just about 10 minutes of updates. We talked social media addiction. We talked NEC. We talked Roundup. We talked Bard. We are moving at a fast pace in mass torts in 2026. Make sure you stay tuned to Tort Talk with myself, Jon Robinson, Mark Ryu, and Joe Fantini to get the latest updates every single week in the world of mass torts. Joe, we'll see you next week.